because it is goalie week on NHL social media. So we figured we'd participate in this a little bit. The Penguins have had some very good goaltenders throughout their organization's history. Hall of Famer Tom Barrasso, as well as future Hall of Famer Marc-Andre Fleury. They headline the list. Recent years haven't gotten the best out of that position. So what we're going to do here is rank where Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic, the Penguins goaltending tandem, stands among the Metropolitan Division. Let me first read you down the tandems that we have here in the Metro Division, and then I'll let you place them first, and then we'll talk about where the placement is and who they should be above. You have Philadelphia, cross-state rivals, Ivan Fedotov, Samuel Ersson. A lot of unproven commodities in that goaltending tandem. Washington, Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson. Columbus has Elvis Merzlikins and Daniil Tarasov. New Jersey, brand new, based on compared to last season, has Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen. Carolina has Frederick Anderson and Pyotr Kochetkov. The Islanders have Sorokin and Varlamov, and the New York Rangers have Igor Shesterkin and Jonathan Quick for a second consecutive season. So when you hear all of those names, where do you think Pittsburgh's tandem of Tristan Jarry, Alex Nedeljkovic stands going into this season?
I would say higher than maybe you'd expect, because I'm taking both into account here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to look at this list and quickly pick a spot. I mean, Shesterkin and Jonathan Quick got to go first. There's no doubt about it, because that's, just Igor Shesterkin, one of the top goalies in the NHL right now, and future Hall of Famer Jonathan Quick, who stood on his head last year, almost stole the starting role in the early portions of the season last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's far and away the easy choice for number one. Columbus is going to be last, just because Elvis Merzlikins doesn't have the same pop he used to, and Tarasov is unproven. I want to say Philly's going to be down low too, because unproven talent and a very bad situation for their goaltending. I don't know about Jersey. That's going to be tough. I'd say if I'm looking at it right now, the Penguins probably have off the jump the third or fourth top, because Ned did pretty well last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Jarry has the potential to be a good goalie still, right? Right? Does he really?
He's shown the ceiling, right? That's what we always argue whenever we're like, well, is he that bad? Because he's shown the ceiling of being a all-star on multiple occasions. It wasn't one fluke. On multiple occasions, he's had a great start to the season. Even last year, when he wasn't an all-star, he had a great start to the season. And then, as we typically see, New Year's happens. He does a little bit too much partaking, and all of a sudden, the back half of his season is crap.
Yeah, and the further I look at it, the further down. I'm just trying to look at it on my list. I never numbered them. They keep sliding down, because Washington's is interesting. They're probably not as big. I probably would sit them sixth, because Logan Thompson has to sort of prove himself, and maybe it's still Charlie Lindgren's net there. It's a new move. Yeah. It's interesting, but maybe Pittsburgh's sitting fifth, because you can't deny Ilya Sorokin, even if the veteran Varlamov, who might be losing steps, is his backup. Markstrom is a question mark. I get he is, usually a perennial Vezina candidate, but something about last season, I don't know if he'll have to bounce back from that. And Freddie Kochetkov is another interesting one. Maybe it's so hard to discuss goalies, especially in the Metro. There are so many good goalies in the Metro that it's tough to place them. I'm going to stick with the Penguins at fourth. Don't ask for the rest of the rankings.
Yeah, I have the Penguins at fifth. Whenever I look at this, I think Carolina, if Anderson is healthy, him and Kochetkov, I think, is a better tandem. I have New Jersey at third, because I have less questions about Jacob Markstrom. I think he's going to have a good year behind that restructured New Jersey Devils defense. And I think having Jake Allen as your backup, people forget, because Jake Allen has been up in Montreal the last couple of years, which hasn't had a lot of visibility because they haven't been a good team. But Jake Allen's been a pretty good goaltender the last couple of seasons. Him in a pure backup role behind a guy like Markstrom, who can be that workhorse, I think is going to be a match made in heaven. And then, like you mentioned, the two New York teams, their goaltending is, 3 of the 4 of them are Russian. And we know that right now is the age of Russian goaltenders being the best in the NHL. Shesterkin is there. Sorokin had an off season last year and still had a .909 save percentage. I would imagine he doesn't repeat that performance. I would imagine he gets back to being his old self. And Varlamov, even though he's older, he's the ageless wonder. Like, you remember, he is probably, and unless I'm missing something, him or Quick have to be the most veteran of the goaltenders in this division, and they're still among the best. Like, Jonathan Quick had a little bit of a resurgence after getting out of LA. It seemed to get a little stale out there on the south coast of California, but he looked really good last year in a blue shirt. And Varlamov has looked really good, really, his entire career when he's been with the New York Islanders. So it's hard for me to put the Penguins, especially with Jari and the question marks surrounding him going into the season, above any of those other four. Now, when it comes to who they are above right now, Merzlikins, like you mentioned, has kind of cooled off. Tarasov is unproven. Samuel Ersson of Philadelphia is interesting because he had a couple of runs last year where he was really productive for them. But again, can he do it? And can he and the absolute monster of a man in Ivan Fedotov do it for a full season as that tandem? There's question marks there as well. So I think Nedeljkovic actually helps the Penguins more than Jari in this situation, because Nedeljkovic against some of these other backups, I would take. Jari against some of these other starters, it's a much more difficult conversation. So I have them in fifth. I think it's a toss-up between them and Washington. They could be sixth.
See, that's where it gets interesting, because the Penguins have the bonus of they're not solid. They're not necessarily standing out amongst a pack of this, but they have two starters, right? They have two starting caliber goalies if things are going well. Columbus obviously doesn't have that. Philly might have that. I think the thing with Samuel Ersson is that he just got thrust into a very bad situation last year. He wasn't supposed to be. I don't remember if it was supposed to be. He wasn't supposed to be on the NHL roster, but he definitely wasn't supposed to be the starter for that long whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And he did what he could, and he did fantastic for a brutal situation. I just don't know if it can continue, especially if Fedotov can be as good as advertised. By the way, we were discussing the Calder Trophy before recording. There's another name to throw into the conversation if he pops off.
Yeah.
I think Washington, Charlie Lindgren, and Logan Thompson is just it's too many. What's the rest of your team going to look like to help you out here?
Well,
better, but still.
Yeah.
But that's another team that's got two starters. Shesterkin and Quick, two starters. Sorokin is definitely the starter, but Varlamov can spot start pretty nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And then Carolina famously had three starters for a long time, so now they're down to two.
Yeah.
So it gets tough. I could see the Penguins getting an edge on some of these guys because they have two quote unquote, if you will, I won't label them as starters, but two quote unquote starters that would have starting roles on a number of teams in the league.
Yeah, on the Pittsburgh-Washington front, I think the ceiling is higher when you're looking at just goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
Team defense-wise, Washington proved late last season that they are far and above superior to the Penguins in team defense and protecting the net front and protecting their goaltenders. So if it comes down to who I believe will have a better season just in general, when it comes to numbers, statistics, probably Washington, because they're probably going to see a lot less opportunities and chances from opposition, because Spencer Carberry hammered that home. They basically became the New York Islanders with a little bit more flair last year, especially late down the season when they were giving up 13 shots on goal, trying to narrow down and get that final playoff spot. So team defense is better in Washington. So that lends me to believe that potentially they're going to have the better season. But I think when you're looking purely at goaltenders, the ceiling's a little bit higher with Jari and Nedeljkovic. So I have them at 5, but I think it's shaky ground for the Penguins in that. I think the point being here is, the Penguins aren't going to win with goaltending alone this year. Certainly not in their own division. When you look at the Eastern Conference as a whole, that definitely gets put into picture even more. When you look at a team like Boston, who still has Jeremy Swayman, if he signs a contract, I mean, we don't know how that's going to end. You have Sergei Bobrovsky coming off of a Stanley Cup championship. So there's a lot of good goaltending in the Eastern Conference. The Penguins are going to need, as with everything else on this team, the Penguins are going to need to have a full 23-man roster that is contributing night in and night out. Even the three guys up in the press box, they're going to have to contribute night in and night out.